let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're taking a really deep, compassionate look at Luisa A. Igloria's poem, To Unravel a Torment, You Must Begin Somewhere. Now, this piece is actually heavily inspired by the incredible French-American artist Louise Bourgeois, specifically her massive, frankly, awe-inspiring spider sculpture, Mama. But getting right down to it, at its core, this poem is a profound exploration of art, of resilience, and ultimately of how we heal. To really get to the beating heart of this poem, we have to start with Louise Bourgeois's core philosophy. It's a framework called art as restoration. Bourgeois believed that the absolute core purpose of creating art and literature is to literally repair the damages that life inflicts upon us. So, it's not just about making something pretty to look at. It's an active survival mechanism. It's how we process internal conflict and, piece by piece, mend what's broken inside of us through creative expression. And in this poem, we experience that powerful restoration through what literary critics call the lyric voice. Basically, lyric poetry focuses on these intense, super personal reflections and almost always uses the first person. So when the speaker uses the word I, they're actively pulling us into this highly visible, incredibly vulnerable space. We aren't just passive readers anymore. We become intimate witnesses to the speaker's absolute deepest inner struggles.
Okay, let's move to our first section. Torment and ordinary objects. I want you to listen closely to these opening lines because the poet uses this incredibly vivid sensory imagery to pull us right into the mundane, domestic sphere. Quote, anything can be a thread, fossil of a seahorse entombed in an earring box, safety pin festooned with 4 wrinkled cords. Just try to picture that vividly in your mind for a second. Let's unpack that sensory imagery, because it's doing a lot of heavy lifting here. Notice those really specific words. Entombed, meaning trapped, right, like in a grave, and festooned, which normally means adorned or draped like a celebratory garland. She takes these heavy, evocative words and contrasts them with completely ordinary items, an earring box, a safety pin. And this brilliantly proves a point. Our deepest torments, and what she calls our identity storage, well, they don't require grand stages. They hide out quietly in our everyday domesticity. Moving on to the next section, the vulnerable lyric voice. So the speaker says, a friend tells me her daughter once confided, I want a life different from yours. I've been there, and also been that wish. Let's just pause here for a second to let the sheer emotional weight of that generational longing really settle. It is such a vulnerable admission, right? She's acknowledging both the sharp pain of hearing those words and the quiet guilt of having been the one to actually speak them in the past.
And this brilliantly illustrates the jarring contrast at play in the poem. On one side, you've got this super heavy internal emotional state, this yearning for a different life and a quiet, deep personal torment. But look at the external reality where it's happening. Casual conversations with friends, domestic settings, totally mundane moments. It really goes to show that the heaviest burdens are often carried during the lightest conversations. From that quiet, domestic moment, the speaker then looks upward and shifts the scale entirely. What could one do with the moon's floodlights burning a hole in the sky? I wanted to stand in the aperture and be seen. Right here, the speaker is expressing a profound, almost terrifying desire to be truly, entirely seen. Let's hone in on that specific word for a moment. An aperture is an opening or hole through which light passes. Think of the lens of a camera. So by wanting to stand in the aperture, the speaker is actively seeking out the light. They are embracing the extreme visibility and vulnerability of that lyric I. They aren't hiding from the torment anymore. No, they are stepping right into the absolute spotlight of it. Which brings us to our next section, scars and surrealistic metaphors. The poem continues. I lay down and let a body press into mine, undo the chaste buttons of red silk. Afterwards, even the rain could feel oracular. When you read these lines, you can just feel the compassionate empathy dripping from the text. It emphasizes how this simple physical act of undoing silk buttons completely transforms the entire emotional environment. Now, let's look at the word oracular. It basically means mysterious, prophetic, or resembling an oracle. So the so what here, the crucial point, is that this vulnerable intimacy is so profound, so deeply grounding, that even something as ordinary as the rain suddenly feels oracular. It's like that physical connection has unlocked this hidden, prophetic meaning in the natural world around them. And then the poem hits this breathtaking turning point. The speaker starts wondering about our fundamental human nature. But what if it's part of our nature to want to leave more than a trace? Even the moon doesn't want to return the comb stuck in its cheek. It pairs this very human desire to leave a mark with a really strange, highly evocative image of the moon.
This image of the comb stuck in the moon's cheek, it's a stunning, surreal metaphor. Think about it. The moon, this massive celestial body, permanently scarred by a simple domestic comb. It perfectly illustrates that some emotional scars aren't just damage, right? They become beautiful, permanent fixtures of our identity. They irrevocably shape our nature. And just like the moon, we might not even want to give them back. That brings us to the climax of this explainer, stacking stones, active resilience. Out of the cold current, I lift and stack stones. I rub sticks together. There are some things I can do. There are some things I can't take back. The realization in those final lines, the absolute finality of things I can't take back, it just resonates so powerfully. It is a steady, incredibly sobering acknowledgement of reality. Right here is where Louise Bourgeois's framework of art as restoration literally comes to life. It's an arc of restoration told through very specific physical steps. First, the speaker lifts and stacks stones out of the cold current. Second, they rub sticks together to create fire. And finally, the ultimate psychological step, they accept the things that simply cannot be taken back. Because stacking stones isn't just a basic survival mechanism here. It represents immense emotional resilience. It is the active, deliberate work of restoration. By acknowledging that there is permanent damage, those things we literally can't take back, the speaker shifts all their focus onto their present agency. They focus purely on things I can do. It's an incredibly empowering stance against whatever torments us. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a provocative thought to reflect on. What small, ordinary objects in your own life hold your deepest stories and personal torments? And when the current gets cold, how do you actively stack stones to heal and repair your own damages? Think about that. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through such a remarkable piece of literature. Until next time, keep seeking the light in the aperture.